You know, man, I like Load, but Load just wasn't a Metallica record. It would be so much better if Metallica would have released it without it being a Metallica record. If they just would have changed the name. The Gazette are my favorite band. I really love them. They're so fantastic. But I haven't liked anything since Dim. I miss them being an alt-rock band. They shouldn't be heavy and do stuff like Dogma. Or Ninth. I really love Coheed. They're my favorite band. But Black Rainbow was just so dark. And it was such a different sound compared to Good Apollo and IKS3. They're not a dark band like that. I just didn't like that record. What is up, everyone, and welcome back. How many times have we had a conversation with other fans of the bands we love and have heard similar things said about those bands and about certain records from those bands? How many times have we ourselves said similar things like that in a conversation about music and about the bands we love? So it brings up the question, is our perception of a band as fans hindering and holding back our listening experience of albums that are still really good records, but don't necessarily adhere to our personal perception or opinion of how we think that band should sound? And to be honest with you, I think it is. It certainly has for me on a personal level. Giving an example, a recent example, is Dir en Grey's The Insulated World. I was struggling with the record after I did the initial listen. And I even said to a couple of people, I don't listen to Dir en Grey for them to be an extreme metal band. And I think I even posted it on the channel in a comment response. So I did it. And then I realized that I was doing it. And then I just sat down and gave many, many listens to the record on its own without factoring in any other tracks that I've heard from the band and just listening to it purely on its own merits. And suddenly it hit me. It clicked. And I really enjoy the record. And I find that I've done that with the records. I know plenty of people who have said the things I said in the beginnings there of the video. And it holds back the listening experience. Another thing pointing out with Dir en Grey is I'm a musician. I've played bass and guitar for a long time. I used to play bass in a lot of extreme metal bands, like death metal bands, thrash bands. And I have that knowledge, or at least opinion, of how drums are supposed to be played with certain passages. And extreme metal, when you're playing certain riffs, because that's how it's been done and it's how we're used to hearing it, drums are supposed to be laid a certain way, played a certain way, to enhance those passages. So listening to a drummer like Shinya, who's very, very straightforward, when he's forced to play fast, aggressive passages, he just goes into that D beat or that really simple snare, hi-hat, kick, blast. And that's what he does. So it struggled to hit me, and I had a lot of issues with that. because to my ears, from my experience, it didn't sound right. And the more I thought about it, to be quite honest, there is no right or wrong answer there. Personal preference is certainly, I prefer a more technical drum passage there in those moments. Hagishia and some of the other faster stuff where he just simplifies. He comes out of a great complicated fill and just goes really straightforward. It's a good example of that. I want busier, more technical drums. That's what I'm used to hearing. It's drummers that I'm used to playing with. And it really boils down to that opinion and that experience affecting my bias, or creating that bias for that matter. And the moment I shed that, really sat down and thought about it and shed that, I understood that that was taking away a lot of the enjoyment of their heavier stuff for me. So those are some really good personal examples, recent personal examples of how that perception was hindering my enjoyment and my listening experience of music, of bands. And having done the channel now for 14 plus months, I see a lot of that with certain bands. This record sounded too accessible, so I couldn't listen to it as much. I don't like the Gazette because they went away from being as chaotic and experimental, and they've gotten heavier, and they're not the alt-rock band that I used to love. I don't like Black Rainbow by Coheed because it's so dark compared to the rest of their stuff. So I feel like we, as fans and as musicians as well, we build this opinion of what something should sound like. And when it crosses that opinion and it's different than what we've created in our minds, it doesn't sound good to us. And suddenly we have issues liking and enjoying it, to no fault of the songwriting, the musicianship, the vocals, or anything else. Just that it just doesn't sound right to us, and we can't wrap our minds around that. And it really, truly can hold back our enjoyment of something that otherwise, without that mental block, would be quite good and quite fantastic. And I wanted to do a video on that and talk about that a little bit, because I really do think that it can hold back our enjoyment of. Now, there's certainly records that just, regardless of how you look at it, just don't sound good. There could be technical issues to it. There could be mix problems. The songwriting just might not be there. Bringing up the Metallica reference in the first clip here, I really like Load, and I enjoy a lot of Reload as well, but I really struggled to like, and still don't like, Saint Anger, and I don't like the latest two, Death Magnetic or Hardwired. Reason I don't like, or several reasons that I don't like Saint Anger. Well, the lyrics are pretty bad for the most part, in my personal opinion. I cringe and cower in fear. My ears run away every time I think about the possibility of having to hear James Hetfield scream frantic TikTok. It just hurts. And while I love the guitar tones, I did not love the Jamaican snare drum that decided to make an appearance. That ringing trash can gong sound that was all over that record. My ears couldn't handle it. And the mix just wasn't something I enjoyed. Death Magnetic suffered some production issues there. And I also personally felt that the songs were a bit bloated and overlong. But really, the issue for me was I felt like they were trying to rehash And Justice for All, up down to the length of the songs, track format, the pacing, the way they set the songs up. So it just felt like a soulless rehash to me. And the same thing I have with Death Magnetic, I feel with Hardwired. Only I feel like they're trying to rehash the early days of Kill 'Em All as opposed to Justice. So, and there's also some glaring mix problems. And while that's still opinion, it's not really based on how I feel the band should sound, as opposed to I'm just not happy with the songwriting. I know those of you out there can find plenty of personal examples that you have in your own life, in your own music, and your own listening experiences, and point to and say that album just wasn't what I expected, and because it wasn't what I expected, I just didn't enjoy it as much. Like, I've heard a lot of complaints from certain Gazette fans about Dogma, and I think Dogma's a great record. I really do. I really enjoy it. I think it's really well played from a musician standpoint, from a musical standpoint. I think the vocals are very well done from a vocal standpoint. And I'm happy with the mix. But some people just could not wrap their heads around the Gazette being that heavy. And getting some of the same complaints with Ninth. Though I do think they did a really good job of attempting to capture some of the magic of their previous sound while still staying true to being heavy and still staying true to a more formulaic approach to songwriting. Their stuff like Stack Rubbish, I enjoy the record, and the more I listen to it, I actually love it. But the songwriting is more unpredictable. It's not that standard format of intro, verse, either a pre-chorus or just going straight into the chorus, your post-chorus, maybe a solo section, whatnot. It's not in that standard format. And that is something that a lot of people really enjoyed, was that unpredictability. Suddenly, the more predictable songwriting that came in with records like Toxic and some of the others, Beautiful Deformity. I've heard some complaints about Division, certainly was and seems to be very divisive. And from what I've heard so far, I do need to listen to those records more. I can't see a whole lot bad about the actual songwriting, as opposed to it simply being a preference thing. Same thing referencing Coheed. I personally absolutely love Black Rainbow. Now, that being said, I'm also a massive Evergrey fan, and Evergrey are very dark, sad, depressing, progressive band in a lot of respects. So because I have that love of a style that is very dark, it was absolutely a joy to hear Coheed in that kind of light. And I'm looking forward to hearing something similar, from what I understand in some ways, a combination of that on Dissension here shortly. And we can reference all sorts of different bands. I remember there being a massive uproar years ago about the changes in the band Immortal. Immortal started out as a very traditional, true black metal band, and eventually their songwriting and their production improved. And I remember the black metal fans flipping out when At the Heart of Winter was released, because lo and behold, they had a good mix and the songs were longer and a bit more epic sounding, and it wasn't the more traditional black metal, and people were flipping out. They weren't happy with it. Started all getting all sorts of stuff. Oh, they're posers, they're selling out. And anytime you hear a band being called sellouts because they've shifted their style, that really boils down to that's not what you want the band to sound like. That's not what you've created in your head how that band should sound. And suddenly you're writing off multiple albums or even the rest of a band's catalog from that point where you felt like they were sellouts, because they don't necessarily fit what your opinion of how that band should sound should be. So here's my challenge to all of you out there. I know there's records that each one of you listen to, or records from bands that each one of you listen to, that you're probably not happy with. And part of that probably is because of the aforementioned issues. If it might just not embody the sound that you felt the band should sound like. So my challenge is for you to sit down with that record without any bias to it. As much bias as you can relieve from your opinion of it, because I truly don't believe it's possible to be completely unbiased. But relieve as much bias as you can and try to focus on that record completely on its own. Don't try to factor in the other records from that band. And give it a couple of spins and see if your opinion of that band and that record doesn't change. Hopefully for the better. Hopefully you'll come out of it and go, man, I actually really enjoyed this, and I heard some stuff that I didn't think of before. Because our tastes certainly change. They evolve over the years. Mine certainly has. Mine's evolved quite a bit since I've been doing the channel. I never expected to have such a love and develop such a love for Japanese rock and metal and VK and all those different little sub-scenes there. And truly, my taste continues to evolve every day at this point because I hear so much new music, and I'm lucky and spoiled to have that opportunity. So taste change as well, and maybe, just maybe, you might be in the right frame of mind to give one of those records another listen and enjoy it. So if you decide to take that challenge, you decide to accept it, let me know how it works out in the comments. Let me know what you thought. Am I just completely full of it, and it's simply just me having the experiences of enjoying a record after I'm putting aside all that bias? Or do you agree? Do you think that it could truly be limiting your enjoyment of the bands you love? Really want to hear your thoughts. Really want to hear your opinions on this one. I'm very, very curious. So I hope you guys enjoyed the topic of this video. I've been kicking this one around for about a week. I want to try to do these videos like this once or twice a week, but I want to make sure I'm still getting reactions up as well as getting more reviews out and other content as well. So thank you guys. I love you. I appreciate you. Truly hope you like this and the idea of doing different content. Thank you to my law enforcement, military, veterans, and first responders for what you guys do every single day. As always, you have been awesome. I have been Bald Man. I will see you in the next one. Be excellent to each other. Keep head banging.